Hey, how's it going? Well, I got excited about my short and finding out that this Roxanne fly actually caught a pike with my buddy. So I'm going to go ahead and tie the pike version because I just realized I don't have one. So I'm going to kind of get straight to the point, just talk about a little bit of stuff, but not really that much. I have a Gamakatsu B10S Stinger in my vise right now. It happens to be the 1/0, and I've got Grizzly variant Schlappen that I use for the tails basically. And I mean, this doesn't have to be pretty, like not super pretty, but this is going to be an awfully big fly, so I'm gonna pop it out probably right about there, get right to the end of the barring. You can make these tails as long as you want. It doesn't really matter. This fly hasn't been sent out commercially, but I do have a lot of photos and stuff like that with it, and a couple of confirmations from some friends on catches with it, and then one on pike, which I thought was awesome. So usually they say 1 to grab, 2 to secure, 3 to lock for thread wraps, and I always try to abide by that as much as possible. This fly was actually designed off a Rapala that I was fishing for a while, and I was crushing it with the Rapala, so I decided to go ahead and turn it into a streamer because I had not seen a streamer anywhere that I had come across that even looked like this Rapala that I had fished and was crushing it on. So I just went ahead and decided I'm going to go ahead and tie this as a fly and fish it. That's exactly what I did, and ever since then it has just hit and hit and hit. My Magic School Bus, my Disco Stew, and Roxanne, I can literally rotate one after another after another after another. They stop eating one, I switch over to the other, right back on the bite. It's actually pretty awesome. So I'm getting all these set up to go out to MFC and probably a couple of other fly companies once I tie some more. So anyway, make sure that's really secure. Grab all that stuff if you want. Hack it off. Now the dubbing was actually a little difficult. My time lapse didn't pick it up, and that's actually why I'm making this video. I figured I'd have you guys tag along while I made this video. That way I don't have to make it upon request. It'll just already be there for you. But anyway, the dubbing on the body was actually a blend between silver and silver holographic because I wanted it slightly shiny but not too shiny. And Disco Stew is a 50-50 in the front and a 25-75 blend in the back. This one is a 25-75 blend front and back, with silver being the majority. Okay, so keep that in mind. You don't want this ultra flashy because it already gets into the water and really annoys the fish. So when you get ready to make your dubbing loop, because that's what we're going to do next, make sure you keep your mixtures in mind. And you don't have to put a lot of this stuff. You really can if you want, but you really don't have to. I've learned the hard way that less is more. And in this one, you do want it strong. You can put Zap-A-Gap on this whole thing if you want, but I personally don't. And I gotta lock the rotary function on my vise. Forgot to do that. All right, and then keep in mind these Gamakatsu hooks, they really like to rock around on you, so you gotta really pay attention to if your vise shifts hooks or not. Some of them do, some of them don't. Now for the dubbing, like I said, it is a 75-25 in the rear of this fly. And so whip finish tools work great for getting dubbing out of dubbing dispensers, by the way. Alright, so there's my 25 versus my 75 right there. Those are the differences. I know you can't tell, but you can see how thick one is versus the other. Okay, 75-25. Holographic is 25. Stack it right on top. If you know how to tie a pearl necklace, you know how that works. Spread it out a little bit, and I'm going to cap it like that. I do the scissor method because it's easier. Usually your index and middle finger are longer than your thumb and index finger, so it makes it easier to do this and insert dubbing in a lot of cases. I know very little people do this. I noticed a lot of people always fight dubbing loops when they're trying to put them in. But anyway, give that a really good spin. And pow. We're going to leave it a little bit plucky like that. Spin it a little bit more. Okay. There we go. Just like that. Just like every other thing that you would tie, you want to pick it a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Now that that's done, see, I told you I'm going to have to readjust my vise here in a second. So I can set that off to the side. It's not going to do anything. Put a little half hitch in right here. If you saw that, that's one finger around. Okay. All the way around. Come around your hook eye. And most people don't know how to do that. There's another way to whip finish too, by two fingers. I'll show you that some other time. Alright, so now that that's done, pull my bobbin cradle up. Okay, I got my dubbing loop ready. Just like that. And I'm not going to make this super tight. I'm actually going to make this kind of loose going up the body because I want all this to kind of stick out and be really, really fluffy. And I can already see that I am literally going to have to readjust this right now. I was hoping to get away with it, but I guess I can't. Vice problems. Ugh. Well, that's alright. As long as you don't mind hearing me talk and you're willing to watch this so you can see how this fly's done, that's fine by me. Okay, so let's get back to this. That's better. So bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. You know, you kind of want it that nech. You want it to look really, really nappy, honestly. The nappier the better in most cases when it comes to this fly. In the front, definitely. On the back hook, you can go about half nap with the way it looks. Brush it out if you want to. I didn't to begin with, but you can if you want. And literally build a good thread base right there. Just like that. Get rid of the dubbing loop tool. Now, like I said, I'll brush this one out just for the sake of getting a little bit out of it. But you usually, I normally didn't do this. Okay. There. That's done. We're going to give it a quick whip finish. Give it a couple of good turns. Going to go double over just to do it. Alright, give it a good tighten, and we're done with the back. So now it's onto the front hook. As long as I didn't lose it. I think I lost it, so I'll just grab another one. Having everything in front of me. It's always a lot of fun. It's my first explanational tie on camera that's actually a serious fly and not like a little nymph. If you did watch my nymph video, though, on the $3 dip, that's a very, very good midge pattern, and it absolutely crushes it. So make sure you hit that with some Zap-A-Gap. Don't hit it with any UV resin. I'll pull it apart and zap it later. I don't really want to do it right now for the sake of time and aroma, honestly. So, alright, so we're going to go 2-aught B10S. The Gamakatsus. These are mean, mean, mean hooks. My original Joker pattern was actually tied on Gamakatsus, not this big, but it was tied as a 5-inch streamer, and it caught a 24-inch rainbow. And once I can get that video footage, I'll show that to you, because that video is actually not very long, and it's totally awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the 3X dumbbell eyes, just for the sake of this being an enormous fly. And like I said, you know, I'm gonna zap this real quick just because I'm gonna have to, but I am gonna build up the 2 bump system right here for lead eyes, because most people don't remember that. It's almost like tying an ant pattern. You build up a bump, and then you cross over and you get in front of it just a little bit, give it a little bit of a gap, and you build up another significant bump. And the reason you do that is because these eyes are huge. And so when you seat them right in this bump, they seat nicely and they don't try to move forward on you when you're trying to tie this thing in, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that, do a 1X pattern too. Okay, and most people are like, oh, you know, you go one way first over the other. I kind of mix it up. Turn that over. Pop it back where it needs to go. Right there. Okay. All right. These bigger eyes can be a challenge sometimes. Okay. There. Now that those are in, let's go ahead and do our final wraps around them. Make sure they're straight. And then do your under the hook, but over the eyes a couple times. Give it a good pull. And do it again. Give it a good pull. Just like that. And then get away from it. Make sure that you're where you want to be. And then I'm going to grab my Zap-A-Gap just because these eyes are big and that'll be the first thing that wants to spin. And I don't really want it to spin. So, a little bit of zap. Just to make sure that these eyes stay glued. No issues. Just like that. I'm going to lock that upside down for a second while I put the Zap-A-Gap back together. Make sure you close this stuff. It has a tendency to dry insanely fast. Double locking lid. Keep the air out of it. It's really good, but the fumes are whew. Okay, now I got that all zapped up. I got to get my articulation wire ready, and I'm going to be using Surflon because I don't have my 19 strand by 42. So I'm going to use pearl beads on this one. You can use clear, you can use pearl, you use any color you want. I'm personally going to use pearl just because I think it'll be a nice little bling factor on the inside of the fly. If it's even seen that much. This thing has to be a tendency to just be so flashy in the water along with Disco Stew that you really can't identify too much detail in the fly, other than the fact that to the fish it's probably extremely annoying. Flat out. It's probably extremely annoying. Okay, I'm going to cut off a significant chunk in length. There we go. Put my beads on. If you've never tied streamers before, put your beads on, go through the hook shank or the hook eye like that. Okay, bring the beads back out in front, go back through them, and then give that a good pull and put a little bit of a kink in the wire. This hook's strong enough so you should really be able to wrench on it. And then make sure those are facing the same direction, they're not twisted. If, you know, everybody is always talking about that. I do have the other hooks where you don't have to worry about that and you can just tie them on the top. I just haven't broke into them yet, and honestly they don't make them big enough that I've gotten so far for this particular fly. But go ahead and tie these in just like that. They don't have to be perfect because you're going to adjust them like you would any other fly. And then pull right about there. Give it a good wrench, just like that. And then come all the way up. And do it just like you would if you've paid attention to any other tires or anything like that, like Kelly Gallup or any of those, Brian Weiss, any of those guys. You know, what's that other guy? Kid's name? Bramer. You know, he's here on YouTube too. If you notice any of them, they have a certain way they tie articulation wire. Me personally, I go through the eye at all times if the eyelet is big enough to accommodate it. If not, I'll come all the way up over, tie in as strong as I can in front of the eyes, and then wrap underneath the eyes, and then grab it again to do kind of what I'm doing here. I'm going through the eye of the front hook just to make sure that the wire is hooked up to the hook entirely from the beginning of the hook right at the eyelet. It's kind of important, especially when you're wanting to make sure that this articulation wire does not snap. Because like I said, this is the pike fly, and what I'm banking on is that guy eats this whole thing and doesn't bother trying to get snagged on the back hook, because I want to get him on the front hook anyway. That's where it matters the most. So give that a good yank just to set that in. And what's great is my zap hasn't even fully kicked, so it's going to grab my wire at the same time, both top and bottom around the eyes, plus the additional thread that I'm wrapping on and everything else, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now for this, you do like you would usual, cut it, get rid of it, go anywhere from halfway down to a third to the back, or 2/3 to the back, and then hack it off. You'll be fine. But when you come back, this is where you can actually give it. This is what most people don't understand. Okay, now I'm going to talk just a second about this while I'm setting this. When most people tie, nobody understands when you come back to your articulation wire, when you go forward and you tie it all in, you lock it, and then you come back, you really wrench on it. And this is where you can do your final set. Make sure you got a final set on it, because you have to come back to where you're going to set your material anyway. So get your final couple of wraps and give them a really good yank, and there you go. Your articulation wire is set and it's not going anywhere, okay? I see very little people that tie flies, that make videos about tying flies, talk about this particularly. It's something that I figured out. It took a long time to figure out, but it was well worth actually paying attention to it. So I figured I'd show you. And now it's right back to where we started. You go right back to the dubbing loop. And I had a rubber band around here somewhere. I don't know what happened to it. So I think what I'm going to do is just clip this tail right here in one of my hair clips, because these things are so universal. Just like that. And go back to the dubbing blend. And like I said, that was quite a bit. But I'll use it. This one's going to be a little bit bigger and bulkier, so I'm adding a significant amount of silver right there. Grabbing my silver holographic, make sure I have a 25 blend. That's good right there. That's good right there. Okay. There's my blends. See my wife in the background, she's paying attention to this. She doesn't tie flies, but it's one of those things that she might want to learn, so I figure might as well have her watch this one as well. So there's the dubbing blend right there. I'm going to set that down because I still got to make my dubbing loop. And in dubbing loops, everybody does it different ways. I personally like to 2 wraps, so it secures it. 2 wraps around the dubbing loop tool, back up, and then go all the way forward to where you're going to stop, and then do your half hitch. 2-finger half hitch, 1-finger half hitch, whatever, depending on the size of your fly. Try not to touch this thing because I could see that glue still looks like it's a little wet. Hope you guys can see this okay on my camera. That's kind of why I'm explaining it to you too, is because I know my lighting isn't that great either, so detail in the fly is really hard to pick up. And then obviously time lapse, it's really hard to pick up too because it's recorded at such a high rate. I have an old phone, so I can't adjust my time lapse rate. I'm kind of stuck in the boundaries of what I've got right now. But I'm going to go ahead and grab this, make sure this isn't all twisted. Don't want twisted material. Okay, there we go. Little itty bitty taper. Doesn't really matter too much. This is one of those flies that the water gets into it and opens it up. But everybody always says taper, 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 so I put a taper in there. You can always pick it out too. If you really want to taper, just get a pick and and you can taper out your fly as you pick it. So anyway, I'm going to pull this all the way up to here. Just like that. Give these some really good spins. People go clockwise, counterclockwise, doesn't really matter. Just give it really good spins so that it spins it up really good like that. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a couple of more. Just like that. Tighten it up. And then that way I'll be able to actually pick it out and not lose a lot of it. Now, what I am going to do is, because you don't want this falling apart, you really don't want it falling apart, put a tiny bit of zap and I mean a little bit, just a little bit, because if you put too much it won't dry. It won't dry, and by the time it dries you'll be trying to pick it out and you're like, you have it all over your fingers. It's a really bad situation. So just a tiny bit. And then take this really slow. Make sure you get your first loop really secure and around the back, and then you can come in and just kind of give it that little itty bitty fluff. Keep it all coming backwards. And really try to keep this right next to each other so that it builds up a lot, because you want this body to be pretty big. Just like that. And that's about the last one I want to do, because I got a bunch more material to stack in here. There we go. And I just felt that B10S stick me in my knuckle. Back hook is already trying to bite me. Okay, come in and cut that loop. Now that I got it anchored, brush this back for a second, get a couple of good wraps right in here. Okay, now, where's my... I'm losing my tools. How did I lose my dubbing brush now? Eek! Totally not cool. Anyway, the next order of business on this particular fly is to tie in your gill plates. You didn't know it had gill plates, did you? Haha. Yeah, so I put in gill plates, and what I did is I went ahead and used the Ice Dub Dispenser 2 UV Pink. And this is really, really hard because this dubbing is not exactly the straightest. So it takes a second to actually get this to work. But you have to literally pull it apart. And like I said, there wasn't a lot of detail in the time lapses because my camera and my phone is old, and quite frankly it's crappy. And yeah, sorry about that. So that's why I'm doing this. But anyway, you see how I got it to where you can kind of barely pull it apart now? That's where you want it, because you want to pinch lightly and you want to pull fibers, stack, roll, pinch fibers, stack, and roll. And you have to do this a while if you want this fly to stay together, because otherwise it's not going to stay together. You can zap-a-gap this all you want. Honestly, what it's going to do is it's going to break down the fibers. They're going to break out faster because it's going to make them harder, more brittle. You want these fibers to flow and open up. So this is kind of one of those really important things that you have to do. I really need my dubbing brush. Honey, can you look on the floor and see if I might have dropped it somewhere down there? Here, take that light, please. Eek, fly tying problems when you're trying to make a video I wasn't anticipating. Thank you. Awesome. Ah, see? That's what I'm talking about. Teamwork. So I'm going to brush this guy out. Get him all really, 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 really shiny and ugly looking. Bass fishing, what I've realized is they absolutely hate silver. So that's why I'm thinking this might be a good bass fly too. I personally have not had the opportunity because it's kind of hard to get to bass where I live, honestly. But you never know. Okay, there you go. You see how buggy and ugly that thing looks now? Perfect. Okay, so the next thing, like I said, you're going to tie this in, but you're going to tie this in a little bit different, okay? You see right here, I got a pinch point where it doesn't want to come out. That's the length I want on this fly. I want it to be about like that. So I'm going to grab right here. That's about where we want. So you can go ahead and half this like you would if you were tying in wool. You just grab it, pinch it in half over the thread like that, get right on the halfway point, and then there, you've got your angle of your hook, and you can come in right here on the side and set it. This gets set right next to the side of the eyes, just like that. Right? Yep. Boom. Just like that. And then get a good wrap. Lock your rotary on your vise. And there's your first one, and then you're going to do it again on this other side. And it's, like I said, a stacking game. I don't like buying all the tools that you can do to so I like doing it by hand. It's more peaceful. It's like arts and crafts. If you ever decide that you're going crazy and you don't know what to do, and you want a hobby, fly tying is awesome. Especially if you fish. If you don't fish, you know, it's a different story. Maybe tie flies, sell them to your friends. Why not? I would. I just give them away. I'm like, here, dude, try this, try this. So, okay, and keep doing that. See, sometimes it takes a while. There we go. Now we're getting better. Perfect. All right, so now I got that one. Same thing on this side. Pinch it in half. Tie it in right on the side of the eyes. Just like that. Okay. All right. Next thing will be your rubber legs. But before we do the rubber legs, you could do this first to make it easier. It's just totally up to you. And they changed my color, honestly. I originally used the sunburst yellow, but now the sunburst yellow is more of an orange. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sunburst yellow with a yellow overlay to kind of lighten up the sunburst a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll take the little itty bitty plumes, just like that, of the sunburst, and then cover it with yellow to make it a little bit less bright on the orange factor, because the bottom of this fly was never really orange to start with. It was a darker yellow. And that needs to stay there. Wish I had my rubber band too. Okay. So I'm going to flip this thing upside down real quick so I can get a look at both sides. It's also named Roxanne because it's got pinky cheeks. But just kind of came to mind. Alright, so one sunburst yellow plume on the bottom of strung marabou. People call it blood quill. It's, strung marabou. And this one is not going to be that long. It's literally going to be pretty much about to where the barb of the hook is. So you're going to set that right in here and come over it. I wouldn't worry about the pinch wrap because it's really hard to do the pinch wrap. You see, it's just that little bit right there. Just that little bit. I'm dubbing in my mouth now. Come over it again, one more time, one more time. All right. Like I said, 1 to grab, 2 to secure, 3 to lock. Now that that's done, the yellow, peel a little bit of this off, right about to there. Just the sake of tying it in, make it a little bit cleaner. Tyre's experience has taught me, wet your feathers, but don't go through your mouth. The main reason why you wet them is because it makes them a lot easier to tie in. It makes them easier to gauge their length. So I'm going to bury a little bit of yellow over this with the same length. If it goes a little bit longer, it's really not that big of a deal. They're not going to care. I haven't found a fish that has wrote me a letter or give me a comment saying, hey, I don't like the fact that your yellow is too long. So, not really worried about it. Now what you can do real quick if you want to is you can come over the eyes real quick. Can't get this dubbing out of my mouth. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Holographic dubbing and stuff like that gets everywhere, just to let you know. So what you can do, just to make it look a little bit cleaner if you really want to, is come in front of the eyes, drop this marabou down, and capture it right in front like that, and then immediately go back behind the eyes, just like that, and give it your 3 additional wraps, give it a crank, and then cut this off. And the reason why you do that is because a lot of people are like really iffy about what it looks like underneath the eyes. Personally, I don't care. I just did that just to show you. I'm going to flip this back over and tie in our rubber legs, wherever they went. There they are. Now these rubber legs are the barred crazy legs, the pearl, it's a clear pearl flake. They actually, they're really nice legs. They kind of have the barring on them and stuff that kind of resemble scales. And I normally tied 4 on the original, when I did it for normal fish, but pike are a little bit different, so I think I'm gonna do probably just a full 6 legs. And same thing with legs, with most other things, is to make it easy. I don't know how many of you actually, do stuff like this, but I really do the wrap over figure 8 style on this, because it really does set legs so much better. So much better. It really does. So you do the figure 8, you pick it up. I like to make sure these are even. Make sure they're as even as possible, because you're going to cut these legs as long as possible. Pike are kind of like muskie. The more you have waving around, the more likely they are to go. If you know what I mean. So there's that. Set them right on top. 2 wraps in front of it. Lay those back. Give it a good wrench. And then that's done. Now, here's something I did on them. You don't have to do it, but I did it. I did it on the original. It does make it a little bit more difficult, but it's something you can do if you want to. You're gonna need silver holographic, which I think I had some somewhere around here. I just pulled most of it out. See if I got one in here real quick. My other dubbing case. It's probably another item that got dropped. Anyway.
Is that what's under your phone?
No, that's the other fly. There it is. Okay, silver holographic. Sorry about that. This video is going to take forever. Trying to keep it short, but I guess it's just not going to happen. Short and sweet, tying a fly. Yeah, right. Okay, so right here I got a little confusing on the original. I didn't really do this too much in the time lapse because I knew it would be confusing, and I just didn't want to. I thought it was honestly going to take longer than it really did. So what I did here is I did another dubbing loop. Now you can avoid this, and it's like I did the marabou underneath just to kind of show you your detour from doing what I'm about to do right now, because I actually do another dubbing loop with the silver holographic just to figure 8 around the eyes. And it was because I wanted everything covered. I wanted everything flashy and a whole bunch of stuff like that when I did the original. And then as I tied them over and over and over again, because they were working really well and fish were just destroying them, I decided to go ahead and do the figure 8, or stop doing the figure 8 around the eyes. But it doesn't have to be that big. It's just a normal loop, just tiny loop, just enough to do a figure 8. So go the other way with that. There we go. Okay, pop this in the thread. Boom. Come up to the top, right there. Okay. There we go. Pick that out. And like I said, it's just a quick figure 8. So I'm going to go down here, over in front, up around, down like that one more time. Grab your rubber legs out, just like that. This thing's fighting me, hold on. One more time, maybe a little bit slower, huh? And I'm gonna put a hair clip on here. Hair clips work great, I'm telling you. Okay, so right there, underneath, in front, and back under. Pull this all back under, and back around the eyes, because all you're trying to do is just cover just a tiny little bit, and then come right around the front, one more wrap, just like that. It does not have to be pretty, okay? You don't have to spend a lot of time making that dubbing loop perfect. Just, yeah, and wrap it around it, because your next couple of materials are going to hide it anyway. It's just how good and flashy you want underneath. So, see, as you can see, that's kind of like, it's kind of alright, it's there, but it's not really that great. That's exactly the point. Because down here on the bottom, change that for a second, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do the sunburst orange, which they say is yellow, but as you can see, I mean, look at that. Sunburst, yellow, and it looks orange. Not a fan, but whatever. Small little plumes are your best friend on this one for sure. Especially because even that one right there would be absolutely perfect. Take a sip of my coffee here for a second. Since this video is going to be super, super long. Right there. That's what I want. Peel the rest of this off. There it is. I hope fish like coffee. Drinking coffee and then, oh, tying flies. Now, for this one, all the way back, same length. I know most people, you can go a tiny bit shorter. Tiny bit. And I'll go just a tiny bit shorter. Right about there. Go about to the front of the hook. Personally, I would really belly this thing out. So for you, if you're interested in making it a little bit more like layered, go ahead and go to the tip. I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way to the back because I want the colors to lay into each other. So I'm going to go to the same point in the back that I did with the first set. Just like that, and I'm going to get some good wraps around that so it's set in. Just like that, you can see the length on it. Hack this off. Just like that. And then take your yellow and do the same thing. Get a really, really good plume of yellow though, okay? You want a really, really thick one that's got a lot of body to it. See if I can find one that's like really, 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 really healthy looking. There's a good one. Grab two if you have to, but one should be what you're shooting for. That one right there. That one. That one right there is good. I like that one. That one looks really good. Main reason why, almost all the fibers on the feather are the same length. Every once in a while you'll catch those where almost every fiber on the feather is the same length. Look at that. That's an awesome marabou feather. And because that's almost full length all the way up, I'm going to tie the entire feather in at the same exact length. Actually, same exact length right there as the sunburst that I got in it. Just like that. Soft wrap just to capture it. Make sure it doesn't go crooked on you. It's really hard to pinch marabou on the bottom when you're doing it on lead eyes. So it's just real pain in the butt sometimes. Get a couple of really good wraps on it. Spin your marabou as you snip it off. Just makes it easier. I'm going to flip that back over because now We're pretty much done on the bottom. Clean up a little bit with your scissors. There we go. Okay. Now this is another kicker part, and this is one of the reasons why I said it doesn't really matter about whether you can make it clean when you do your dubbing loop around the eyes, is because this was one of those things that I just took extra precautions in when I tied it, and it was, I don't know if I have any more of it. I probably just ran out tying this fly, which wouldn't surprise me. But you actually take a little bit more silver, and of course I did. So you'd take a little bit more silver and you'd tie a stream of it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just finish up the fly for you since we're already here. You're going to grab your shimmer fringe, and this one happens to be the eye stub shimmer fringe in Peacock Eye. That's what I originally used for this fly. And that was because of the design that I had, that I was running off of the Rapala. So this right here, that tiny little bit of shimmer fringe is all I need, and that is going to make a huge profile for this fly. You can see the length of the fly right here, even though it doesn't want to stay up and I don't have a rubber band. I'm actually going to crimp this a little bit different. Crimp the tail just like that, just so you can kind of see the fly a little bit. Put it on that side for you. There you go. Now you see the fly a little bit better. This little bit of shimmer fringe right here, straight up like that, all the way to the back, going up almost, pretty much almost to the tails. And what you do with this, make it really easy on yourself, is just grab it. And I like to actually tie in the plate that it's got just to start, because it just makes it so much easier. You just do a little loop over it, grab it, pinch it down with your opposite hand and pull, and then you can go ahead and slide adjust it where you want it. That right there, go a little bit more, just like that, right there. So you want the shimmer fringe to go back far enough to where it goes right to where the start of the tails are, because you want it to cover the whole back of the fly. It's going to open up a lot, so it's not really going to impede the back of the fly at all. Plus you've got the swimming tails that are just going to be back there going absolutely bonkers. So that's pretty much it right there. That's where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and snip the excess of this shimmer fringe off, just like that. Take one more look at the bottom and see how it looks. I'm pretty good with that, just to leave it like that. And then go ahead and build a really, really clean, significant head on this thing, just like that, and then whip finish until your heart's content. If you've never used a whip finish tool, I've noticed this, there's a lot of confusing tips on a whip finish tool. One guy said you use the hook and you grab it, and then you kind of come around, and seriously, like, just like this, thread down right here, you see the thread, you see that little notch down here on the bottom, grab your thread just like this, boom, okay, come at it like that, just like that, okay, hope you can see that really well, okay, see that, my bobbin's closest to me, just like that, and then the tool will naturally round itself like this, and come around to the position as you bring your bobbin down to the top of the fly, running the same way as the fly, so that you come over and over and over, pop it out like that, and drop it, and you're good to go. Okay, so now the fly's all whip finished, go ahead and do that. And like I said, I will zap a gap it later, but this is basically Roxanne, and this is the edition of Roxanne that is for pike or probably really, really insane bass. And before I close this video, I'm going to do one more thing. Grab your rubber legs like this. Pull them back. Don't pull with tension. Pull them back till they're straight. Let off your tension just a tiny bit. Make sure they're straight, even with each other. And then these things are going to move around like crazy. Make sure you don't catch any other material. And then go ahead and give them a snip right about it, around the same length as the shimmer fringe. A little bit shorter than the shimmer fringe. Right there. And that's good to go. It's got all these crazy legs off to the side. It's this big, flashy, annoying thing in the water that the fish are just going to be absolutely nuts over. And there it is. So let me know if you liked the video by leaving a like on it. Share it with a friend if you would. If you have anybody who's interested in fishing and ties flies and wants to figure out how to tie this and they couldn't get it on the time lapse, subscribe if you're interested. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And other than that, I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching, and you all take care.